Emma Stone is really great in Poor Things, but she also just won an Oscar in 2017 for La La Land. Margot Robbie, what she's doing in Barbie, she doesn't have those huge sort of scene-stealing moments that other people do in the movie. Directors in the director's branch maybe are a little more highbrow. They don't usually go for big, huge comedy blockbusters like Barbie. One of my rules for predictions is that if you replace the word best with most, that kind of helps a lot to figure out, most acting, most hairstyling and makeup, most editing.
Michael Schulman, welcome to CNN News 18.
Hi, good to see you.
Thank you, Michael. Looking forward to talk to you, and we'll be talking about your Oscar predictions for this year's Academy Awards. And your book, that's Oscar Wars, which is a very interesting read, a deeply researched history of the Academy Awards, in which you explore 9 decades of Oscar-related tough battle. It also talks about the people who shaped the Oscars and put spotlight on the Academy's incredible knack for being wrong, which I think a lot of people can relate looking at this year's Oscar nomination. I'm talking about the snubs, the big snub for Greta Gerwig and Barbie's lead actress Margot Robbie. What could be the reason for Academy to overlook the contribution of film central voices this year, Michael?
Oh, I think those two snubs are really interesting the closer you look at them. First of all, Barbie got 8 nominations, which is a lot. So, and both of those women got nominated in other categories. Margot Robbie's nominated as a producer in Best Picture, and Greta Gerwig's nominated as one of the writers in screenplay. So it's not like the Academy said, no, 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 we hate Barbie. They like Barbie. So why did they not get in those two categories? Well, the directing category is a really tough one because there are 10 Best Picture nominees and 5 Best Director nominees. So do the math. Half of those Best Pictures of the year are not going to have nominated directors, at least. And I do think that it's a category that's been more difficult for women historically, so you can't count that out. But I also think that the director's branch, remember, each branch nominates in their own category. And I think the directors in the director's branch maybe are a little more highbrow. They don't usually go for big, huge comedy blockbusters like Barbie. If you look at who was nominated, you have Justine Triet of Anatomy of a Fall, Jonathan Glazer of Zone of Interest. Those are non-American, sort of tough-minded movies.
Yes.
And I think there's a taste factor and maybe even a little bit of a snob factor about Barbie. And then in Best Actress, you can't blame that on gender because they're all women. So I think it's certainly interesting, but it kind of makes sense to me. There are a lot of really great performances in Best Actress, and Margot Robbie, what she's doing in Barbie is, she doesn't have those huge sort of scene-stealing moments that other people do in the movie, like Ryan Gosling and America Ferrera, who were both nominated in other categories. It's a little bit of a less showy performance, and it's also a comic performance, which again is harder. Comedies just don't do as well as the Oscars. So I think there are a lot of factors involved, but it is a weird sort of result when you think, okay, who directed and starred in this movie? These two were the driving creative forces of Barbie, the biggest hit of the year. And yet in those categories, the nominations didn't match up to the achievement.
Let's start with the predictions. Let's go first with the Best Actor category. Whom do you think will be the front runner or likely to win? Will it be Cillian Murphy for his performance as J. Robert Oppenheimer in Oppenheimer, or will it be Paul Giamatti as a cranky history teacher in The Holdover? According to you, who will win the Best Actor Oscar and who should win?
If I had to place a bet, I think I would bet on Cillian Murphy at this point, just because Oppenheimer seems to have a lot of momentum behind it in a lot of categories, and he is the face of this movie that is beloved. And I think if anyone can beat him, it's Paul Giamatti. Um, but I just don't know. It's hard to. I just don't think that's going to happen at the end of the day. As much as people love the holdovers, including me, and love Paul Giamatti, and want to see Paul Giamatti embraced and recognized, I just think that the Oppenheimer uh, enthusiasm is really going to sweep him up.
Sure, sure. So let's talk about the Best Actress Oscar. Whom do you think will win in this category? And again, who should win? Is it going to be Emma Stone and why? Or there could be Annette Bening for Ride, Lily Gladstone for Killer of the Flower of the Moon, Sandra Hüller for Anatomy of a Scene, Carrie Mulligan for Maestro, and a lot of people are putting their money and their bet on Poor Things. Whom do you think will win?
Okay, I think it's the conventional wisdom is it's either Lily Gladstone or Emma Stone. I think that's probably right. And if I had to put money on it, uh, I guess I would bet on Lily Gladstone. I think people are excited about her winning. People are very enthusiastic about her as a talent who's sort of new to a lot of people. Emma Stone is really great in Poor Things, but she also just won an Oscar in 2017 for La La Land. I keep thinking that maybe Sandra Hüller will be the surprise upset just because people do love Anatomy of the Fall and of a Fall and are so anyone who sees it, which a lot of people is just in awe of her. And she's also in Zone of Interest and really great in that too. Um, so I don't know. I'm sort of hoping that there's some surprise. I love surprises. I don't like when things are too predictable at the Oscars. So I don't know. I think it would be really exciting if Sandra Hüller somehow won. It would obviously be really exciting if Lily Gladstone won. And then, Emma Stone, she could pull it off, but I feel like it would be a little bit of a downer, like she's such an established Hollywood talent. And I think there's an excitement when someone essentially new to the Oscar scene comes along.
So let's move on to the next category, that's Best Supporting Actor. This year, there's some big names here too, starting with Robert De Niro for Killer of the Flower of the Moon, Robert Downey Jr. for Oppenheimer, Ryan Gosling for Barbie, Mark Ruffalo for Poor Things, and Sterling K. Brown for American Fiction. Whom do you see taking home Oscar trophy, and whom should win, according to you, in this category?
Well, this one is easy. It's going to be Robert Downey Jr. Definitely. I think as soon as I saw him win the Golden Globe and give that incredibly charming speech, it just was a reminder that this is someone who has made a lot of people in Hollywood a lot of money, first of all, through being Iron Man. He has been around forever, since the 80s. And he's so charming and so funny and such an insider. And he's also had this incredible arc of having serious drug problems, having a real sort of
Yeah.
a real sort of downswing, and then coming back with Iron Man, and then not only carrying this, incredibly successful franchise and launching it really through his force of personality, but then using that to do this kind of complicated, not quite likable character in Oppenheimer. And I think it's the whole package for a category like Best Supporting Actor.
Sure. And let's move on then to Best Supporting Actress category. Who do you see winning Academy Award in this category? The nominees are Emily Blunt for Oppenheimer, Daniel Brooks for The Color Purple, America Ferrera for Barbie, Jodie Foster for Ride, and Dwayne Joy Randolph for The Holdovers.
I think that's another easy one, which is Divine Joy Randolph for The Holdovers. She's been winning pretty much everything so far. And I think that people really, really love The Holdovers, but it's one of those situations where this is probably going to be the way that the Academy gives an Oscar to The Holdovers. Kind of like a few years ago with Marriage Story, where Laura Dern won Best Supporting Actress. People want to give the movie something, and this is sort of the way to do it, the best way to do it. It's a great performance. It's absolutely wonderful. It's a sort of a classic supporting performance where she's not the main character, but it's hard to imagine the movie without her.
Yes.
And yeah, I just think hands down, that's an easy one.
And I loved her performance and the line she says in the film to Angus Tully. She says, that's played by Dominic Sessa. She says, you can't even have a full dream.
Yeah, I think it's a really beautiful character that she just absolutely nailed. And people are excited to give her the Oscar, and they're excited to have a way to give the holdovers an Oscar. The only other one I really think it has a chance for is Paul Giamatti, as we discussed, but it's a much tougher category.
Let's talk about then the best picture race. There are 10 nominations in this category, and surprisingly, there's Anatomy of a Fall, Barbie, The Holdover, Killers of the Flower of the Moon, Maestro, Oppenheimer, Past Lives, Poor Things, and The Zone of Interest. And surprisingly, in this category, there is Past Life, which is an Korean American film. Then there's Anatomy of a Fall, which is mostly in French. Plus there is Zone of Interest, which is also nominated in the Best International category. Do you think that it's going to be Oppenheimer winning the Best Picture award here?
Yeah, I mean, I do think it's going to be Oppenheimer. It's hard to imagine what else it would be. I think there's always the possibility that something really unexpected would happen. And again, I root for that because I love surprises. Um, but I just can't figure out what the spoiler would be. Would it be Barbie? Would it be Anatomy of a Fall? It's hard to see it. It's hard to picture what that movie is that gets so much of the Academy behind it unexpectedly that it overtakes Oppenheimer. I think Oppenheimer has the full package. It's a gigantic hit. It's an artistic triumph. It's a technical triumph. It's a big movie that's about something important. And I think we didn't talk about director, but I think that Christopher
I
Nolan's
have.
going to win
I'm just going to
director.
come about the directors, but I thought first we finish Best Picture and Best International Feature.
Okay. I mean, I think that it's going to be Oppenheimer and more Oppenheimer.
So, whom do you think will take home the Oscar for the Best International Feature category? The nominees in this category are Lo Capitano from Italy, Perfect Days from Japan, Society of the Snow from Spain, The Teachers' Lounge from Germany, and The Zone of Interest, which is from United Kingdom.
I think Zone of Interest, I mean, for the obvious reason that it's also nominated for Best Picture and Best Director, was obviously widely seen and widely uh, respected by a lot of the Academy. So how could any of these other movies beat it?
Who do you see winning the Best Director Oscar this year? The nominees here are Justin Trier for Anatomy of a Fall, Martin Scorsese for Killers of the Flower of the Moon, Christopher Nolan for Oppenheimer, Yorgos Lanthimos for Poor Things, and Jonathan Glazer for The Zone of Interest. Will it be Christopher Nolan for Oppenheimer, or do you think it could be Martin Scorsese?
I think it's going to be Christopher Nolan. I think that Martin Scorsese is obviously a legend, and so many people in the Academy revere him. And he's been campaigning really well. I mean, he's been on his granddaughter's TikTok and being totally charming.
Yeah.
But I just don't think at the end of the day, people have the same feeling about that movie. I think the movie is a little bit divisive and people are not quite sure about it in the way that they are sure about Oppenheimer. And I also think they're excited about awarding Christopher Nolan, who's been someone who's had a really interesting career, a very commercial career,
Yes.
and is sort of like a filmmaker's filmmaker. He's someone who lives and breathes
Movie.
cinema as Scorsese does, but like there's something a little bit fresher about Christopher Nolan. And Scorsese also has, with The Departed, not his best movie probably, but he already had his big Academy triumph finally. If he had never won that and we were still waiting, then maybe. But I just think that at the end of the day, people are excited. Oppenheimer has that whole package, as I said before, and people really, it's a director's piece.
I want to talk to you about the snubs now, but before that, I just want to ask you, since we are talking about the directors, why Academy has this tendency of overlooking the contributions of actors who have turned directors. Like they did not nominate Ben Affleck in the year 2012 for the Argo, and even this year they just did not give even a nomination to Bradley Cooper for Maestro.
The Argo one is really strange because that won Best Picture, and yet he was not even nominated for Best Director. I don't know what happened there. I think maybe people think if we nominate you for your acting, then that's enough. Like two things is too much. Um, but then again, I'm pretty sure Mel Gibson was nominated for, or maybe even won for Braveheart. So I don't know. I think Maestro, I don't think people like Maestro enough. And it's a little bit, the acting is very the acting in Maestro is very sort of like Oscar friendly acting in the sense that it's big, it's a real person who's a genius. It's prosthetics and a funny voice. It has all those things that like are catnip to the Academy for acting. And I just think that sort of took the energy away. I don't think people loved Maestro enough to like just give it everything. And again, the truth is the math. Think about the math. There are there are 10 Best Picture nominees, 5 Best Director nominees. So half of those movies, at least, are not going to get nominated for Best Director. So everyone in the director category who made it is, you know, a heavy hitter.
Can you also talk to us about the Barbie snub and the article that you wrote in the New Yorker?
The point I wanted to make in that piece is that the Academy does not always go full, it does not always go all the way with like huge commercial hits, summer blockbusters, that kind of thing. Um, and so in 1976, Jaws had completely revolutionized the film industry and become a huge hit. It was the highest grossing movie ever when it came out, and a phenomenon. And it was nominated for Best Picture and some other things, but Spielberg was not nominated in Best Director. And um, I think you can also think about last year when Top Gun Maverick
Yes.
was seen as this movie that saved the movie industry, saved theater going,
Yes.
and was a gigantic worldwide hit. And yet it was not. It was the same thing as Barbie. It was nominated for Best Picture, um, and yet the director wasn't nominated. Tom Cruise wasn't nominated for Best Actor, and it was in a lot of other categories, but not those two. So to me, it says that the Academy, part of this Barbie thing is that the Academy on some level thinks, okay, this was like just a big blockbuster hit, but it doesn't also need to be the winner of every category at the Oscars. I mean, sometimes it does happen. Like the year of Titanic, that was like the biggest hit of the year. It also won Best Picture and Best Director for James Cameron. But I think that was a different kind of movie. Titanic had this sort of historical drama quality to this. It was this historical epic. A movie like Jaws or Barbie or Top Gun, they are action movies or comedies or thrillers. And I think that those categories are a little bit more marginalized at the Oscars.
Like since you're so bullish about Oppenheimer, as you mentioned, Titanic bagged 11 Oscars. It's the film with the maximum Oscars. Do you see that history repeating this year with Oppenheimer?
Getting to 11?
Yeah.
How so it has 13 nominations. I'd
Yes.
have to go through one by one and be like, what's it really gonna win? It's hard to tell. We didn't talk about the screenplay uh
So
categories,
who do
but
you
the
think
screenplay
will?
categories are really tough, and I'm very conflicted about who's gonna win. I mean, Oppenheimer's in Best Adapted Screenplay, but you know, it's up against Barbie, which might win that one. American Fiction could easily win that one. And then what else? Poor Things in Zone of Interest. I'm just looking at my list. That's a really tough category, and I don't know if Oppenheimer is going to pull that one off. However, I think you could easily get a lot of the craft categories that it's in. You know, best original score. You know, I think it has that boom
Oppenheimer gonna get the
score.
best score, yes. But best song
Yeah,
you think is gonna be for Barbie?
best song I think is going to be that Billie Eilish song from Barbie. What am I made for? So Oppenheimer's not in that category, but like things like production design and sound. I mean, I just cinematography. I feel like it's very possible that it could just
Sweep.
get them all. Well, hairstyling and makeup is I'm not so sure about. Costume design, I don't know. You know, editing, I could see it winning that. I'm just like looking at all this stuff.
I can help
Oh,
you.
it's not.
I think costume design, they probably give it to Poor Things. And
Yeah,
hairstyling.
costume design. Yeah, I think it's probably Poor Things.
Best hairstyling could be to Maestro.
It could be, yeah. I think it very easily could be. I mean, one of my rules for predictions is that if you replace the word best with most, that kind of helps a lot to figure out, you know, most acting, most hairstyling and makeup, most editing, most costume design. That's usually a way to predict what's going to win. You know, that's why I don't think that, you know, the Zone of Interest is going to win best adapted screenplay because there's not a lot of talking in it. You need most writing, you know?
Then is the best picture is really the best picture, or often it is the best campaign that makes a film win.
That's a good question. You know, I think that campaigns are extremely important, but they're not everything. People do have to like the movie. You can't make people like a movie that they don't like. When you talk to campaign strategists for awards season, what they always say is the biggest hurdle is just getting people to watch the movie, getting people to pay attention. I think that's much more important for the nominations. At this point, you know, everyone has seen these Best Picture nominees, like the Academy has seen them, and you know, I think the campaign can move things by inches, but they can't make miracles happen, and they can't make a you know something that people don't like win. Um, so I don't know. I mean, it's interesting to see what the campaigns are doing right now. You know, people have criticized Bradley Cooper for campaigning too hard, for instance, and kind of getting on people's nerves. But that has happened before, where people have been accused of campaigning too much and they still win. So you never know. I think it's really an inexact science.
And finally, so before we say goodbye to you, what's your final tally? Like, do you think Oppenheimer gonna win six or seven Oscars this year, and three trophies will go to Poor Things?
I think the ones that it's more like, what will Oppenheimer not win? I think it'll win Best Picture, Best Director, probably Best Actor. It won't win Best Supporting Actress, so that's one it won't win for Emily Blunt. It will win Best Supporting Actor. It may not win Screenplay. You know, that's why I say it's like it's kind of laborious to figure out. You have to
Best
subtract more than
cinematography, best cinematography,
I think it'll win that, yes.
best score.
Best Score, I do think it'll win that. Production design, I don't think it'll win that actually. I think Barbie or Poor Things will win production design. Um, Best sound, I think it will win, although I think the Zone of Interest should win.
That's
That
seven.
sound design,
So you're saying Oppenheimer gonna sweep? It's gonna be a sweep by Oppenheimer.
I hope to be wrong. I always like to be surprised. So I'll say, yeah, sure. That's my prediction, but I also really always, I never want to be too right because that makes it boring.
Well, thank you so much for talking to me and sharing your predictions with our viewers. Looking forward to read your articles about movies, your recommendations. Have a good day, Michael. Thank you so much and best of luck.
Thank you for having me again. What a pleasure.
Thank you.